Now let's add a couple more tests to our framework test class to see a couple other examples. So let's go to our resource pack directory and let's open the 45th step called frameworktest.php, adding 2 more tests. Let's copy this code and paste it over frameworktest.php and save it. So if we go up to the top, we'll see that this very top code is identical to what we had before, but now we've added 2 more tests: test error handling and test controller response. So in this first line, what we do is get framework for exception, and we're passing the exception that we want to run through here. We're basically setting up our framework to throw an exception that we pass to get framework for exception, and then we're just making sure that our framework handles that exception properly. So in this case, we're testing anything other than a 404 error by passing a runtime exception. We do the same thing that we did before. We grab a response by running framework handle and passing in an empty request. And then we're going to do an assertion to make sure that the status code that we get from our response is 500. In this final test, test controller response, we first grab a mock of our matcher, just like we did in our get framework for exception. We set up our matcher to return an array of values whenever the match method is run. We're even setting up a custom controller here. We're grabbing a resolver, we're setting up our framework, we're running framework handle, and then we're checking to make sure first that our status code is 200, which means that our page is getting returned properly. And next we want to make sure that if we're using Fabian as the name parameter for this route, that the content should say hello Fabian. It should at least be in there somewhere. And so we're doing an assert contains to match up hello Fabian with what we get back from the get content method from our response object. This is similar to the send method, which we've used to basically display our entire HTML page and set up the headers, but this just grabs the content instead of setting all the headers as well. Let's go ahead and run these inside of PHPUnit. I'm going to go to the command line, I'll clear the back scroll, and let's type PHPUnit again. It runs really fast, and we see that 3 tests have passed. Each of these dots indicates a test that's passed.